nights, the endless day. In the night, whenever your dreams have made you wake and right. In the night, whenever your nightmares start, then think of me, think of me. Sometimes
Rebecca, I can't see someone. I can make one. I have to bring you one.
Call the December 2024 meeting of the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Curtis Brown.
Here.
Jonathan Repass.
Here.
Doug Lloyd.
Here.
Ashley Williams.
Here.
Cecil Anderson.
Here.
John Elliott.
Here.
Sherry Garrett.
Present.
Rebecca Longmire.
Here.
Paul Huff.
Here.
9 members are present.
We have a quorum. If you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals are volunteers from each commission district who do not receive compensation for their work on the board or the training they attend. As a quasi-judicial body, we avoid ex parte communication and conduct our business in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. My name's Paul Huff. I am the chairman of the board. To my right is Mr. Curtis Brown, the vice chairman. To his right is Myers Morton, our law director representative. Knox County Codes, do you have anyone in attendance?
Yes, today you have myself, Steve Elliott, Miranda Ward, and from Knox Planning, we have Mike Reynolds.
Our voting procedure requires a simple majority of the board members present. Today there are 9 members present. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. The Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals is authorized to grant variances and hear other matters by the Tennessee Code and the Knox County Zoning Ordinance, specifically Section 6.60, Board of Zoning Appeals. These laws prescribe strict parameters, the meeting of which is required to grant a variance. The burden of proof that an application meets these parameters rests on the applicant. Quoting from the Knox County Code of Ordinances 6.60.04 variances, quote, "The purpose of the variance is to modify the strict application of the specific requirements of this ordinance in the case of exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep lots, or other exceptional physical conditions whereby such strict application would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of their land. The variance shall be used only where necessary to overcome some obstacle that is preventing an owner from using their property as the zoning ordinance intended. For each matter, the clerk will read the request into the record. The chair will then ask if the applicant is present. The chair will then ask if there is opposition or other speakers who wish to present. You do not have to come forward at this time. Once we determine the speakers for an item, we will call on government agencies such as Knox County Codes, Planning, or Engineering to make statements regarding the facts pertinent to the property and background of the request. Board members may ask questions of the governmental agencies once they have made their statements. The chair will then call on the applicant to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and present their evidence and reasoning supporting the granting of a variance. If there is no opposition, the applicant has 10 minutes to present their case. If there is opposition, the applicant and opposition each have up to 15 minutes. After the applicant's presentation, the board members may ask questions of the applicant. The chair will then call for opposition or other parties who have up to 15 minutes to speak. This 15 minutes applies to all parties, so if there are multiple parties who wish to speak, please determine how you are going to divide your time beforehand. After the opponents present their opposition, the board members may ask questions of the opponents. Finally, there will be a discussion of the case by the board, during which time the board members may ask further questions of parties that have already testified. The board will then make any determination it deems necessary. Our bylaws allow an applicant at the initial hearing of the matter to request a deferral of 30 or 60 days without prejudice. In the event of a deferral of an application or failure to appear, any opponents may be heard on the record at a meeting where the application they oppose appears on the agenda. Mr. Law Director, would you swear in any of the speakers today?
Would each of you that's going to be testifying to this board, please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you.
Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda?
There is none.
Okay. If we will start with agenda item 4A, if you could read the item, Madam Clerk.
4A is a request of Nick Whitehead for waiver to extend the current CA zoning line 100 additional feet to include back portion of the parcel. The property is located at 7117 Chapman Highway, CLT map 137, parcel 179. Property is zoned CA and AG in the 9th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition to this? You have anything, Steve? Statement from codes?
No, not at this time.
Any question? Well, since
They're not here, we can pass this on.
I think this one would require a deferral of that 30 days automatically.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we defer this till next month.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any opposition? Any discussion? All those in favor of deferring for 30 days, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. On to 4B.
4B is a request of Oleg Zayats for waiver of west peripheral setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. The property is located at 1114 North Campbell Station Road, CLT map 130, group JE, parcel 00102. Property is zoned PR in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition to this? Any statement from codes?
None at this time.
If you could, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name's Oleg Zay. It's 2000 Panoramic Way, Knoxville, Tennessee, apartment 203, 37932.
Pursuant to Knox County Code 6.604, what evidence do you have to present that supports your application for a variance?
Yes, thank you for your time, guys. Quick backstory on this property. My wife and I were both nurses. We got married about 3 years ago. We have been looking for a home closer to our parents, and of course, nowadays it's really hard. It was not feasible for us, so we bought this property from Houston Homes, and in hopes to build a duplex on it and move our parents closer to us and take care of them as they age. I recently rezoned this property from 4.1 dwelling units per acre to 4.4 dwelling units per acre to allow me to build a duplex on it. I went about it the right way. I went and got all the neighbors' signatures and everybody signed, and they're looking forward for us to be their neighbors. When it came planning to build this duplex, actually not too long ago, we were informed that North Campbell Station Road is being widened, and there's a turn lane that's going into Fritz Road. So because of that, they went and put in new utility poles, which presented as a hardship for me because per the Knox County bidding map, and I have it right here, the one in the blue, they have access for me to have my own driveway. But per the plat map, I'm supposed to share my driveway with a neighbor in the green here. So when I was talking to a utility engineer, he said we had no idea. He said that per our maps, you have your own driveway. So they literally put that pole right between me and my neighbor where my driveways were supposed to be joined to join together. So with that hardship, I'm requesting this variance to decrease the peripheral setback on the west side from 20 feet to 10, and in hopes that we can just push my duplex over and gives us more room to about 10 feet to have easier access and plan the driveway to the duplexes. If you look at this picture I got here, this is my property, and on the west side is a retaining pond. So the decreased variance peripheral setback should not affect any neighbors. It's just strictly going to benefit me to tie in my driveway to the neighbor's driveway so we can get in and out of the duplexes easier. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for this applicant?
Yeah, I'm not quite understanding. When I look at the picture, so you're telling me that your house and the house right next to you, you're going to have to put your driveways together into one driveway?
Correct. That empty lot is where we're going to build a duplex, and the town of Farragut will not allow me to have my own driveway access. So per the plat map, I'm supposed to tie in my driveway to my neighbor's driveway to make it work. But between my neighbor and my lot, that's where they put the new utility pole, and there's also a sewer cap right there too. So it has become that right there, yeah. So there's that new pole and that sewer cap, and I'm supposed to tie in my driveways there. So that's the reason I'm requesting a variance for decreased peripheral setback on that west side, so it gives me more room to tie in my driveway with my neighbor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for
Yes, sir.
Governmental officials. Is this in the town of Farragut?
The right-of-way of Campbell Station Road is in the town of Farragut. The parcel is in Knox County.
So because the right-of-way belongs to Farragut, they have jurisdiction over driveway access?
Yes, they control the access.
Okay.
And
Any other questions of the applicant?
yeah, we bought this property from Houston Homes, and they didn't specify or didn't tell us that we have to share the driveway. So we found this out after we bought the property. So this is lemons, and we're trying to make lemonade out of it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the waiver of the west peripheral setback from 20 feet to 10 feet due to the hardship caused by the pole and the fact that he has an unbuildable lot next to him.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and I would like to add that having this shown as a periphery is, I guess, stretching the definition of periphery. It's actually a boundary between two PR developments. So I guess technically it is a periphery, but in reality, doesn't really function as one. So I just put that out there for the record. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah.
4C is a request of Linda Cox for waiver of front yard setback from 40 feet to 16 feet. The property is located at 7109 Old Clinton Pike, CLT map 067, parcel 195. Property is zoned to AG in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? That would be you. Can you turn your microphone on? Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Linda Cox, 7109 Old Clinton Pike in Knoxville.
Is there any opposition to this?
Not that I'm aware.
Any statement from codes?
I would add, prior discussion at lunch, we've interpreted what is the rear property line of the front parcel to be the front property line of this parcel. There's nothing in the ordinance that says that's the front, but that's the way we've interpreted it for several years. So that's why she needs the variance today.
And this is, as I understand also from lunch, that this is an issue that you plan to address, hopefully, in the new, I forgot what you called it.
Yes, in our meeting with the consultant for the Unified Development Ordinance, I've asked them to define these scenarios and what is a front, what's a side, what's a rear in this type of situation.
Thank you. I'll let you state your case.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious, but go ahead.
Well, thank you. Yes, what he just said, I don't know your name, but I appreciate your comments. We have a difference of opinion, in my personal opinion, of where the 40-foot setback versus the 10-foot side setback would be in this case. I am a widow. My husband would normally take care of these things. I bought this property after he passed about, 4 years ago this month. And it was 3 pieces of property, and it was all on one deed. In other words, the purchase price was for the entire 8 acres of land. So my house actually, as you can see, sits in the middle of the 8 acres. There was an existing building on the property when I bought it. It was old and dilapidated. You can see that, I think, somewhat there in the picture. What I'm proposing to do is simply just replace it. I'd like to put a garage down there, and yes, it does have some small living quarters. It is an oversized garage for storage primarily. The living quarters was my idea in case I have family from out of town that need to stay overnight. My house has 3 bedrooms, but 2 are used and 1 is an office. So that was my intent. I had no idea that I would have an issue with a 40-foot setback. It would really cause me a lot of hardship. I couldn't use the property the way that I would want to use it, as you mentioned earlier, if I were to have to move that up into the ridge area. It goes up a steep incline up to actually the top of the back property there is Beaver Ridge, I believe, is what it's called out there in the North Knoxville area. So it would cost quite a bit of money to move trees and dirt. It would just really cause me a hardship financially and otherwise. So I would really like to ask for your variance today. I do own all the property in the front, in the back. It's 3 separate parcels, but it was all on one deed. And, I have control of all of that. I'm not infringing on any neighbor. I don't see that there's an issue. I would like to have the 16-foot setback, which is above the 10-foot setback the surveyor had originally put on the request. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have further questions for codes now. My interpretation of what I just heard was this is going to be a garage apartment.
Yeah, she has 2 acres, so her lot area will support 2 dwelling units, so a garage apartment is fine.
Does that change the setback requirement?
It does not.
Thank you. Since there's no opposition, I guess I will entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the waiver for the front yard setback from 40 feet to 16 feet due to the very steep land and topical conditions. It's really the only place the structure can be built.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready?
This is 4D.
4D is a request of Ed Reed for a waiver of section 4.92.3.D.3.A to allow lattice-style tower. The property is located at 6530 Fountain City Road, CLT map 058, parcel 004. Property is zoned AG in the 7th Commission District.
The applicant, I assume you're the applicant? Is there any opposition to this?
Chairman, there was a letter from the neighboring HOA that we provided to you guys.
You're right, we have that letter. Okay, in support of, or pursuant to County Code 6.60.04, what evidence do you have to present that supports your application?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members.
Pardon me,
My-
sir, I
Sorry.
spoke out of turn. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Ed Reed. We reside at 435 South East End Road in Strawberry Plains. East End is the east end of Knox County.
Thank you. Now, if you would tell us,
Okay. My name is Ed Reed, and I'm here today representing the North Knoxville Seventh-day Adventist Church and a subgroup of our church board, the North Knoxville Health Education Center. On July 5 of this year, we were granted final approval and a construction permit by the Federal Communications Commission to build a low-power FM broadcast station on our property. Low power in our case means 62 watts. Since the 50-foot tower was recommended by our broadcast engineer, the last step in the FCC approval process was to complete a review of the National Environmental Policy Act. We hired a Dynamic Environmental Associates Incorporated to conduct this study for us. This study took 3 months to complete and generated a final report of 300 pages. The conclusion was that the 50-foot tower on our property would have no negative effect on the environment or the community. The last step before we begin construction process, of course, is to talk with the Knox County Code Administration. And so we begin that process by asking for a variance in the section. What we're talking about is the wireless communication facilities, which is Code Section 4.92 D3A, which calls for new towers to be a monopole design. That would be like a streetlight pole, just a round pole. And we're hereby asking for approval to use a lattice-style tower as follows. The size is a Roan brand model 55G 50-foot self-support tower. And the reason for this is because, well, we have several reasons. I'll show you with the first one, the Federal Communication Commission, the review of the National Environmental Policy Act, and our broadcast engineer have all approved a 50-foot self-supporting lattice-style tower for our low-power FM radio station. You see a picture, I think, before you now of what it's like, a typical ham radio operator type tower, a small tower. Please understand, this is not a 200-foot cell phone tower. This is just 50 feet tall. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. The lattice-style tower is easier to access and service the antenna when required than is a smooth, round metal pole, which would require the antenna, require the use of a bucket truck for these services. There's one other factor, and there's two other ones I'll share with you. The third one is the cost differentiation. The lattice tower would cost us $10,500. We have a quote for that, and that was in our budget. But when we came to Knox County, we find that the code calls for a monopole. It's a type 2 monopole, which means that the type 1 has the antenna inside of it. This one, the antenna would be attached to it. But the cost of the monopole, $15,625, 50% more than what we had budgeted for in that item. We recognize that some folks would feel that in the grand scheme of things, that spending an additional $5,125 for the tower was no big deal. However, when a church is involved, things take on a little different perspective. The revenue stream of our church is from the donations of its members, but we believe that once the funds have been placed in the church account, it becomes the Lord's money. So we're duty-bound to exercise prudence and honesty and integrity in dealing with the spending of the additional $5,000, and that would be more of a big deal in that case. The fourth point I'll mention is that we understand the purpose of the zoning. Section 4.92 of the Knox County zoning regulations regards the appearance of wireless communications and also to preserve the aesthetic character of our community. We believe that these are noble purposes. In fact, without regulations like this, our county would look very different than it does today. We believe that our tower request would be in harmony with these purposes, which are for the following reasons. First of all, there will not be a base station associated with the tower. The associated communication equipment will be located within the church building itself on the property. In addition, and this is probably the most central point, we have 5.9 acres there on the property, and the tower will be located in a heavily wooded section of our property, mature hardwood and pine trees on the south, east, and north sides of where the tower will be located, and the church building and parking area on the west side of the tower. Many of the surrounding trees on our property, mature trees, are 70 to 100 feet tall. So the 50-foot tower would not even stick up through the canopy of the trees. So it would not be change the character of the community at all. That's just a little side. How do you think I guessed how tall the trees were? Well, geometry would tell you by measuring the shadow, of course. But we had a dead poplar tree on our property, and we had it removed about a month ago. And when it was felled down, it measured 90 feet, 93 feet. And the top had already gone out of it, so it would probably been over 100 feet when it was still healthy. Another factor about not changing the character of the community is the tower would not have a light on top. There wouldn't be a light to distract people in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, one is not required for a tower less than 200 feet by the FAA, as many of you know. I will also mention that this is a little bit unusual, but 50-foot lattice-type tower is the common one used by ham radio operators. And I happen to be a ham radio operator myself and have been for many years and have a current license. These towers are exempt from the zoning code when used by a licensed ham radio station. And I'm not saying that we're going to plan to do that. I'm only saying that if that were the case, there wouldn't be any requirement to how to do it or what kind of pole to use. So what we're actually asking for is to put a pole on our property, put an FM antenna on it. It's going to be 50 feet high, and we're not talking about a higher pole. We're just talking about what does the nature of the pole. Instead of a round cylinder, it's a trifold. It's 17 inches on a side, equilateral triangle, 50 feet high. And this is, of course, easier to service because with a safety harness, you can climb it and take care of things that needs to be done. So I would very much appreciate your consideration of this, that we use a lattice-style tower for antenna instead of a monopole design. Because of the geography of our place with all the woods and so on, it likely will never be seen by any of our neighbors. Some of you know where the property is, and we keep it up nicely with our yard and so on. So thank you for consideration, and I appreciate your service.
Any questions of the applicant?
I don't have a question of the applicant, but I would like to draw your attention to the fact that a lattice pole is much more environmentally friendly than a monopole, especially for birds and the fact that you can see through it. So it doesn't cause the disruption, I think, that a monopole does.
Any other comments? In the absence of the opposition, as Steve mentioned, there was a letter sent to the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals about this issue, and I feel compelled to read it into the record. On behalf of the Sturkey Hills Unit 3 Homeowners Association Incorporated, I hereby request that the requested waiver be denied. The application states that the proposed lattice tower is screened. However, this is not the case. The location of the proposed tower will be fully visible from the road and at the entrance to the parking lot. The tower will not be fully screened from trees, and the trees are not all evergreens. The original approved design will be far less of an eyesore. Thank you. This is from Jesse Owens, President of the Sturkey Hills Unit 3 Homeowners Association, 1213 Paxton Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37918.
Mr. Chair, I would like to emphasize the idea that the location of the tower will be fully visible from the road at the entrance to the parking lot. So the fully visible, if you're on the road, it shouldn't make that much difference.
Mr. Chairman, could I interject here? I'm sorry. Even if you approve this variance today, they will still have to get planning staff review, a level 1 review through staff. So there will be landscaping requirements placed upon them by planning staff. That is, we're not looking at today. All we're looking at is the difference between a monopo or a lattice pole. But there are further review and further requirements that will be placed upon them after today's hearing if you choose to grant this variance.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that if a ham radio operator can put up one of these lattice towers, lattice poles, without any question, that it seems interesting that in this particular case, it can't be done.
Yes, it is interesting. However, ham radio operators are licensed and regulated under different laws and rules. I don't even know if Knox County has any regulations regarding ham radio operators.
They are, it's our interpretation that the applicant is correct. The ham radio operators are exempt from the zoning ordinance, so they would not be required. If this were a tower for a ham radio operator, we couldn't regulate it.
But it's not. It's a radio station, broadcast station. Sherry, did you have a, Ms. Garrett?
I did. I noted in the opposition, he was talking about the application states that the proposed lattice-style tower is screened. So is that if that's the code, is that a requirement? 'Cause I honestly didn't see it in here, and he's saying that's not the case.
It would be required to be screened. I think Miranda's reading here. It would require a 12-foot high landscaping buffer around the base of it,
Okay,
which would
that's the type of
be,
screen he's talking about. Okay.
oh, 12 foot deep. I'm sorry, not 12 foot high, 12 foot deep.
My understanding, though, those landscaping requirements that are normally associated with telecommunication towers is to screen the base equipment, the building, the whatever's at the base of the tower. And in this case, there won't be anything to screen except the tower itself, and the 12-foot landscaping buffer will have no impact on that.
Yeah, I would agree with your interpretation. That is the intent of the landscaping screen. It would still be required with or without the base station, but it wouldn't be screening anything other than the base of the tower.
Ms. Garrett? Ms. Garrett, do you have a?
I'm still processing. I had a question. So basically, your hardship is mainly financial, is that correct?
No, it's also service, the service of it. And in addition to that, in spite of what the letter just said, if you were at the bottom of our driveway, there are trees there. There's a big pine thicket there that's green all year long. You can see, and the driveway actually turns around, so if you're starting up the driveway, you wouldn't even, that's a very good picture of the property. If you look up where the parking area is, to the right of it, right where Miranda's got the pointer, is where the tower would be. And so from the north side, which is the Tommy Schubert Park, there's lots of woods, and from the east side also woods, much of it pine trees, which you can't see through in winter or in summer.
What about the south side that looks to be a cul-de-sac with a number of houses around it?
Oh, the south side?
It's actually
I think the south side is where the road is, but that,
well, it's the southeast, I don't know.
okay, yes, sir. We haven't had any opposition from those folks at all. In fact, many of you are probably involved with radio, but University of Tennessee has 100,000 watts of FM power. We're talking about 62 watts. It's barely, you have to intentionally find it.
The power output is, as far as I know, is not an issue. The issue is, can they see it from their house?
I don't think so.
I have a question. Sir, what are you going to use the radio for?
It would be a community radio station for music, health education. That's our North Knoxville Health Education. We've done a lot of programs like reversing diabetes, weight control, stop smoking, and so on. There will also be children's programming, just a general.
And this is part of your church, your religious activities?
Yes.
Currently, there's no restriction on the use of the property between the cell tower and that group of homes on the cul-de-sac. You could, after this is done, clear cut that whole area. There's nothing to say no. And even if the church doesn't, whoever acquires this property at some point down the road could and clear cut the property, in which case everybody will be able to see this tower. So we have to look at not just the current today issues, but whether anybody might be injured in the future.
I understand that, sir, but whether or not the pole's a monopole or a lattice pole, that's all we're talking about today, isn't it?
Yes, monopoles being more aesthetic than lattice poles. According to the regulations, the laws on the books. I don't have an opinion personally one way or the other.
Sure.
But the law is written that they need to be monopoles. And I'm sorry, I personally haven't heard a compelling reason to go against that law.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion.
Go ahead.
Because honestly, I agree with you. I don't see a compelling motion. We really can't take finances into consideration when we're, looking at variances. And a lattice-style tower, while it may be easier to service, a monopole tower still is not impossible to service. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the application for a lattice tower due to no compelling reason to meet the criteria for variance.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of denying this variance request, please say aye. 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 Any opposition?
I am opposed.
I believe it's 8-1. I believe the county is 8-1 in favor of denying the application, so I'm sorry, but we can't support your application.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see, this is 4D? E, I'm sorry, E.
4E is a request of Nazar Markevich for waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.76 acres. The property is located at 5901 Roberts Road, CLT map 022, Group JA, parcel 013. Property is zoned AG in the 8th Commission District.
Are you the applicant, sir? Is there any opposition to this?
No opposition that I know of.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Nazar Markovich. My address is 1619 LeConte Road in Knoxville, Tennessee, 37914.
Any statements from codes on this?
We don't have any at this time.
Pursuant to code 6.60.04, what evidence do you have to present that supports your application for a variance?
Before I go into the evidence, can I talk? I have two variances for this meeting under my name for the same situation, pretty much. Can I talk on both variances at the same time, or do I go one by one?
I think we would prefer that you discuss them individually. I think the issues that we will want to talk about are varied.
Okay. Okay, so for the first variance application for 6.5, this is for the waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.76. This can be on 5901 Roberts Road. So this property belongs to New Liberty Baptist Church. Currently, the total property, the property size of the church is 2.47 acres. So this is a plot this is the plot from 2008. So I'll give a little bit of backstory on this situation. So back in 2008, New Liberty Baptist Church, they purchased this back piece of property from a neighbor because they were a fast-growing church in 2008, and they were getting too big for their building. So they purchased that property with the intention to, in the future, either have additional parking or maybe even in the future to add an additional building back there. Then, unfortunately, over the years, their congregation got smaller, and currently, as their congregation stands right now, it's about, I spoke with the pastor, he said it's about 30 to 40 members, and he's not really seeing any growth in the congregation. So what this back property has become is pretty much just a burden to the church. It's extra maintenance for them, it's extra cost for them, and they really have absolutely no use for the property anymore. So the church has decided to sell the property. And when I came to this area, I approached the church, and I asked them if they're willing to sell it, and they said yes. And they said that all they're wanting is, if you can pull up the other plot from Neil, this one, yes. So they're asking for a little diagonal section. So if you see it's labeled as proposed lot line, they're asking for a little diagonal section because they have a trailer back there. And initially they wanted to go back to the original lot line that they had in 2008. But they have a trailer that they put there, and they're using it as a storage trailer right now. And they just wanted a little bit of a diagonal section because the trailer doesn't have any wheels right now, and they have no means to move it. So they're wanting that diagonal section, and so the reason the church isn't wanting a full acre is because, first of all, it's going to be a big burden for them to have all the extra land that they're not going to be using. And then also probably the bigger reason is I would like to in the future put a structure on this lot 1R-1. If you go back to the deed or the plat, so there's, if you can see on the northeast side, there's a 20-foot sanitary sewer easement, and then on the west side of the property, there's another 20-foot drainage easement. So if the church is getting a full acre of property per their lot, it's going to take into pretty much most of the buildable space. So if we're looking at all the setbacks that I need to adhere to, and along with the drainage easements, the house that I put is going to be pretty much way down the hill on this new property. So the reason I'd like to do it by the proposed lot line is just so I have the buildable space on this property. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? So you're here representing yourself, but also representing the church, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It's already, well. Go ahead, Ms. Longmire, you can read it in.
All right, this is a letter from Keith Buckner, who is the pastor of New Liberty Baptist Church, 5901 Roberts Road, Coreyton, Tennessee, 37721. Pastor Keith Buckner, on behalf of the members of New Liberty Baptist Church, hereby gives permission to apply for a lot variance on parcel 0221A013. Pending approval of this variance, the size of the church's lot will be reduced to 0.76 acres, and the remaining land will be sold to Nazar Markovich.
So just so I understand the math here, in order to be compliant with the zoning requirements, the church would only need to add 1/4 of an acre to the 0.76 that you're proposing in order to get a full acre. And they're not willing to do that?
I don't have a word on whether they're willing to get that full acre or not. But from what I've spoke with them is that they really don't want any more than what the proposed lot line is. I've spoke with Keith Buckner repeatedly, and he said all he wants is that little lot line that's just past that trailer, that storage trailer.
I would give you some history of that, and perhaps, Steve, you might remember, we did do a variance on New Liberty Baptist Church as far as the rear setback, to allow them to encroach on the rear setback. That was several years ago.
I assume that was before they purchased that lot in the back. What was the original lot line? What did it look like? I can't tell from here.
If you can see on the map there, it says old deed line, that was the old property line.
Is that in our package?
Or, yeah,
Can you zoom in on that? I'm hard of seeing.
there, you can see it now where it says old deed line, that was, and actually the church was on a very small lot. You can see 2 old deed lines there that, I guess when they bought the property, they made the lot wider and they purchased that rear property, it looks like.
That church was built long before codes bothered with anything out in the county, I think.
That was a parcel that was probably created by deed that, you know, we wouldn't have allowed a plat to be recorded on that today, so.
Frankly, I haven't heard a compelling reason not to require the church to maintain a 1 acre lot, other than the fact that they don't want to be burdened with the maintenance of it. It could be done fairly easily, I think. I'm not at liberty to figure that out for you, but I know any good surveyor could. And I think if you worked with the engineering department, they might be able to help you figure out what could work there. As far as if you did that, then we don't have an issue. If the church maintains a 1 acre lot, then this variance request is not necessary.
Well, yes, another issue that comes of this is, so pretty much based on my KGIS measurements, for the church to maintain a full acre, so that north boundary of the church property, you'd have to extend that pretty much just going along it all the way to the 20-foot drainage easement. So I was just based on the property, the property just slopes up on a hill, and my intentions were to place a house kind of on top of the hill, and with the with having a boundary there, I would have to be putting the property just down in the valley, and there's just a lot of drainage that goes down there. There's a drainage that goes down where that easement is, and then on the other side through the north property as well. And I really didn't want to go that deep into a valley with a structure. I would much prefer it to be at a higher elevation, if at all possible.
Any additional comments?
I think, just to verbalize it, one of the concerns is if we were to issue your variance, it creates a non-conforming property for the church. I would like to see the church, if possible, I'd like to see you go back to the church and see if it's at all possible, if they would consider maintaining 1 acre, and then come back to the board. Just my thoughts.
Any further comments? Are we ready for a vote?
If he does come back in our packet, it would be possible to have the different easements marked, because I can't find where the two different easements are, the drainage and the sewer easements.
It's on this plat that's on the screen right now. If you look at it on the two sides, on the west and east side, there's the 20-foot.
I understand, but I was looking in our packets, and we don't have that particular drawing. And for that reason, I'd like to make a motion to postpone it for 30 days to allow us to get the information about the easements, and also to allow you time to talk to the church about how, if possible, they could make their 1 acre.
Second that.
Are we doing it for both, or are we just this one
Just this one.
agenda item?
Just this one agenda item.
Okay.
I think the next agenda item will be a little easier to deal with. Motion's been made and seconded to defer this for 30 days without prejudice. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. We'll see you again in 30 days, hopefully with some more information from the church. And it would be helpful to have somebody here from the church, if possible.
Okay, I can arrange that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 4F.
4F is a request of Nazar Markovich for waiver of lot intensity from .79 acres to .67 acres. The property is located at 5911 Roberts Road, and the item description is the same as the last.
I don't think so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion, since we postponed the first item, that we postpone this until we have a decision to be made on the first one.
Second.
I'm not sure that whatever decision we make on the first will affect the
It'll have
access
a lot
to that property.
It had a lot to do with it.
I'm sorry?
I think it'll have a lot to do with it because it's got an easement to be able to get back there to that property.
But that,
There's been a second to the motion, by the way.
I'm sorry. Okay, somebody seconding that? We have a motion and a second to postpone this until we determine what to do with 4E. I would like to go on record to say that I don't think whatever we do on 4E will have any impact on this request, but I am willing to take a vote to postpone it. All those in favor of postponing this until 30 days, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, and I will oppose that.
Both of them together next time.
Just a comment, so just to confirm, next time, for the next meeting, you want me to bring Pastor Keith Buckner or some representative from the church? Is that correct?
It would be to your benefit.
And you might ask them to come with some compelling reason why they can't keep a 1 acre lot line, or 1 acre lot size.
Okay. Very well, thank you.
Thank you. This is 4G.
4G is a request of Clint Palmer for waiver of periphery boundary from 35 feet to 15 feet. The property is located at 1027 Gray Eagle Lane, CLT map 118, group GG, parcel 030. Property is zoned PRTO in the 3rd Commission District.
You are the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Is there any opposition to this? If you could state your reasons for requesting the variance? I'm sorry.
Clint Palmer and 1131 Gray Eagle Lane,
Thank you.
Knoxville, Tennessee, 37932. So yeah, you all may be familiar with the Gray Eagle Springs subdivision. We're somewhat infamous for our Christmas lights. I don't know if anybody's ever been through our neighborhood, but it's fun. You should watch the YouTube video if you can't make it out there. Pretty tight-knit community. I've lived there since 2010. Currently, I own lots 36 and 37, which I live on 37. And 2 years ago, I purchased lot 30, which is the one we're referring to today. In the Gray Eagle Springs subdivision, there are 44 lots in all. 32 are peripheral lots, and there are 12 interior lots. 12 of the 32 peripherals are next to Business Park. As you may know, I would be in front of the Planning Commission if we weren't next to Business Park. Instead of being next to residential, this would have been a different discussion. Only 2 lots in the entire subdivision are actually smaller than this lot. And only one of those is a peripheral next to the Business Park. And I included in the packets, if you look at the 2 houses next to this lot, the position of the house is actually about 15 feet further back into the rear lot than the rear edge of those 2 surrounding houses. And if you look at photos of the actual property, it's a pretty sloped yard. The front yard has about a 9-foot drop over 20 feet, and the back corner has a 7-foot drop over 20 feet. So there are some definite topographical challenges. So definitely within the Gray Eagle Springs subdivision, it's a shallow lot, it's a narrow lot, it's a steep lot. It hits all the criteria for physical hardships. So what I'm wanting to use the land for is to put a workshop and a pool. We're not actually talking about the pool. The only thing I'm needing the reduction for is for a workshop that will also be multi-use. It'll have a patio area and a bathroom for the pool. If you saw the inside of the house, the only place to go to the bathroom other than the pool would be to walk through the house over the hardwood floor through the whole house. And just would make it a multi-function structure that would really meet the needs of the property for enjoyment purposes of that property. If you look at the actual layout of the backyard, from the back of the house to the rear property line is roughly 50 feet and a few inches. So with the 35-foot setback, there's really no way to construct a structure that would meet those needs of the enjoyment. The granting of this variance is, I believe, consistent with the original ordinance, and I wanted to make sure it wouldn't injure any of my neighbors, so I actually went and had discussions with all of my neighbors, including Wally B. McClure, who is the owner of the Business Park area. Before having that discussion, I offered to purchase some of the land, but he's not interested. It was owned by his father, and he plans on putting an apartment complex there, which I don't love, but it is what it is. And at the same time, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that he felt would affect his future use of that land. Spoke with the neighbor that would be looking at it, before I even considered this, and they were all for it. I'm kind of known in the neighborhood as the go-to guy for, if you need some woodworking or welding or, some sort of project done, Clint Palmer has the tools, come to me. And, having this workshop would allow me to do that. So I do feel that the literal enforcement of the setback would cause some unnecessary hardship based on the property and lot challenges, and it deprives my family of a reasonable use of the land, and ultimately might be injurious to my neighbors and community because they do enjoy me having all these tools. As of today, because I own 2 properties, I have 2 garages, so I can maintain all these tools and equipment and everything. But once I move out of my original house and up to this house, I won't be able to do that. I guess that takes me to the justice part, and I try not to get choked up here. I'll do my best. So the original reason I bought this house back in August of 22 was because my father, he was aging, and they lived in Memphis, but they'd still come and visit. And the current house I'm in, all the living spaces were on the 2nd floor. this house came available, and, it had 2 bedrooms downstairs, and I said, this will work great, and look, it has a side access driveway, and we can put a workshop on there. Please forgive my ignorance of not knowing about peripheral setbacks at that point, but I jumped on it as an opportunity, and the next month he died. So he never actually got to see the house. He raised me to learn to do things, to learn hobbies, learn skills. You may have seen the picture of his Chevelle, which I have in my garage. I still like to sit in it so I can remember him. And I need a place to store that. You see my 12-year-old daughter there, and trying to raise her with the same kind of inspirational legacy that he gave to me, learning how to do things and activities. And this workshop would really mean a lot to me in doing that. So that's all I got. Thank you for your time.
Coach, do you have something to add to this?
I do. As we talked about in the agenda review, the only infrastructure that I see off of the design plans for this subdivision was along his back property line. There was supposed to be a swale to convey the water down to the detention pond. So the only ask that Knox County would have, if you choose to grant this variance, that we stipulate he must maintain that swale along the back of his property line. And other than that, we have no opposition to this request.
Yeah, that swale in the detention pond or retention pond, the retention pond appears to be number 2 on lot 36.
Yes, that's correct. The water would flow I'm going to say the north, back towards Bob Gray, I believe that is. So there's a swell along.
Can you zoom in on 36, please?
I own that lot.
Yeah.
Actually, I own.
Yeah. Before you go on, Steve, from the way it's drawn, it looks like the drainage comes from the road into the detention pond, and that round circle with the head wall on it is the outlet structure?
That's correct. Yes, that would go out onto the neighboring.
Into the swale.
No, that would drain off-site onto the McClure property next door. Along the back of his lot, there's a swale that picks up the surface water off of these lots and takes it into that pond.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, you were going to say something else when I...
That's all I had.
So where it says utility easement, it's not a utility easement?
It is not. That's the surveyor language did as utility, but it was more for drainage than utility. And we don't have any issue as long as that drainage is maintained.
Would you be able to maintain that drainage?
Not only would I maintain it, but I don't propose to put anything onto that easement. I'm maintaining the 15 feet.
I would just caution you when you're building your pool, not to let your slopes get too far back into that drainage, or you may have a water issue.
Yeah, assuming this gets approved, I already have an engineer and an architect, and I'm going to get them all involved. Last thing, Dr. Smith, who is the next one to me, I don't want him complaining that my water is draining onto his property. So, we're.
Whose district is this? Doug?
Doug's.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this request for 1027 Gray Eagle Lane. I looked at the project, or at the property, and can confirm everything that Mr. Palmer says.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you all so much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And this is 4H. 4H now?
4H is a request of Josh Martin for a waiver to allow the required off-street parking from sealed surface construction to gravel. The property is located at 4307 Greenway Drive, CLT map 059, Group JA, parcel 032. Property is zoned IRB in the 8th Commission District.
Is the applicant present?
Hi.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Josh Martin, 4307 Greenway Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37918.
Any statement from codes?
We don't have any at this time.
Well, I'm going to ask you in a minute why we require sealed surfaces instead of asphalt. Just be thinking about it.
Okay. I have your reason, straight out of the zoning ordinance.
Please continue and tell us the justification for the variance.
Okay, it's not designed that way. It's already gone through planning for the site. It's designed for pug on top of gravel, except for the ADA parking and the egresses, which is going to be concrete. If we put asphalt down, all it's going to do the first 3 months, it's going to leak oil and gross all the way down the hill. First week it's over 90, it's going to be gone. All the trucks we have on it will destroy it. If you've ever been down Middlebrook Pike, any places where you see heavy trucks, it's going to destroy it. There's nothing I can do. There's no heavier top on it we can put on it. It's going to, as soon as it gets 90 degrees and you park a truck on it for an hour, you've basically put basketballs into it. More that happens, more it tears up. This time next year it'll be gone. And we putting gravel down.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that the site was designed and approved by Knox County with gravel on all surfaces. Stormwater quality calculations were made according to this design. Pond size, sluice sizes, drainage pipes were designed using the current calculations, which having to do with gravel. And I don't know to whom to address this question. If it is changed to asphalt, is he going to have go through Knox County again to get everything
No,
approved?
ma'am. Knox County stormwater treats gravel and asphalt the same. Both are considered impervious by ordinance.
Really?
And that was done intentionally because, and this is reverse of what we normally see. We normally see businesses that come in and say, we want to use gravel for parking, and then they don't provide detention because they're saying they have a pervious surface, and then they come back and pave it the next year when we're not there overseeing it, and they bypass the detention requirement. So we treat both the same. So your pond is sized if you pave it or use gravel.
I was told differently by Amanda Berkey.
He was told differently, and I don't want to get deep into the engineering of it, but a asphalt parking lot would be considered like a curve number of 92 for the amount of runoff it generates. We give them a small credit for using gravel down to like 82 or 83. I can't remember that number off the top of my head. But the difference between the two is very minimal. The pond size would not increase drastically off that curve number.
Well,
there's no room to increase the pond size. There's no swales.
Dealing with runoff for a long time, and basically what it is, it's a matter of time and concentration. So it's a minimal impact.
That's correct. We treat, the paved surface has, I think it's 92, and the gravel surface is treated as a 85, but a wooded surface or a grass surface would be treated as like a curve number of 40. So there's not that much difference between the two.
And so there would not be an increase in runoff? Sort of?
By our ordinance, the gravel and pavement produce almost the exact same runoff volume.
So he would not have to increase the pond size, sluice sizes, drainage, anything like that?
It would be minimal, very minimal.
But the issue in the, well, there are two issues, I guess, in the ordinance 3.51.06, being a sealed surface versus an unsealed surface. Asphalt it being a sealed surface, I assume you would agree that's
yes,
correct? And,
yes.
And gravel is not a sealed surface.
Correct.
Why do we require sealed surfaces for in these applications.
I would, per the zoning, I would say your answer is right there in the zoning ordinance, so as we don't create dust and create a adverse effect on neighboring properties.
Well, again, I'm hard of seeing, so I can't read that, but
It says, and maintained in such a manner, that no dust will result from continuous use. I don't know that I agree with that, but that is the ordinance that I've dealt to deal with.
Right.
We're
So-
planning on putting PUG on top of it, which is a compressed, it just doesn't have what I was told, the absorption, has more absorption than the asphalt, way less expensive as well.
I'm not, you said pub?
PUG, P-U-G.
Pug mix, which is
Pug mix,
gravel.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
compressed
A
gravel.
lot of fines, pretty much,
Hard road.
well, it's essentially crush or run with,
Well, that's what we're gonna do on the road anyway.
right. But that's not a sealed surface, and it creates dust. And that's what we're trying to avoid by this ordinance.
But we're gonna have that on the road, and the parking area is such a small area, plus the cost prohibitive. I mean, the asphalt's 20 times as much as PUG. And it will fall apart yearly. We have 18-wheelers in there, 6 a day, 5 a day. 4 days a week.
I've seen 18-wheelers driving on asphalt roadways years and years and years between failures.
Destroys them.
After 10 years, I'm not sure why your roadway would be any different if you designed it and built it to those standards, but never mind. I mean, that's a question. Who has a question? Oh,
Yeah, so a question I have, if asphalt would be an issue for parking the trucks on, what about, concrete, traditional concrete? Would that not be more durable and hold up to the
Cost.
trucks?
Comes back to cost and design. I mean, until recently, we were told that, even my engineers, I've got an email from them saying that it's gonna change your water quality going to asphalt. Now, apparently that's coming from a completely different department, because I've heard about this just a couple weeks ago, right? And this has been approved for 5 months.
Steve, do you know, would concrete be significantly different than asphalt?
It would be treated, the curve number would be the same for concrete as asphalt, so it'd be a 92, 93, and then, the gravel's treated as, I think it's 85.
Okay.
I think there were two issues raised in the discussion in the packet. One was the quantity of water, and the other was the quality of water. I think Jonathan's question has more to do, would it change the quality of the runoff to go from gravel to asphalt?
I wouldn't think so, and it wouldn't affect the water quality volume either. It's based upon the one-year storm, so it's calculated underneath. We're getting deep into the details, but it wouldn't affect the water quality volume, no.
Okay.
I think it's important to note here, the way we interpret this, we're only interpreting this to say the required parking has to be paved. So the required parking is based upon the number of employees he has. He can have some gravel parking in there. It's just the area that is required by the ordinance is the way we interpret it.
Do we know what percentage of?
He has 10 employees, so we back that out. He's got to have 5 spaces. That would have to be the permanent parking there for those employees. The other area is above and beyond what's required, so that can be gravel. Gravel, concrete, whatever, yeah.
So I want to be clear on that. We're not talking about the entirety of that, just that one small area where the employees park?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, were you
About
aware of
what
that? Okay.
About what size would that be?
Oh, turn your mic on, you can't, somehow your mic went off.
I'm sorry. If you go to the last screen, please, I can make that work. So you look at each side, So the shaded area in the corner, that's the ADA parking. So that's already concrete. So all I gotta do is bring it out a little bit more and then two more spaces. That'll be out of the roll of the trucks. My main problem was, as you see where the second door is, all of that area being paved, that would be destroyed.
So you really don't need a variance then? You
Oh,
just,
I'm good now.
you're good.
I just
Well,
need a
that is
permit. Please.
So you're withdrawing your variance, right? Because you don't need it anymore.
I'm good now.
I think we're having a discussion here.
Discussion right now, but that's
Get my permit.
basically what's going to happen.
No change, Steve?
No, we're good.
Thanks.
Just the 5 spaces would have to be paved.
I think we have to have a motion to,
I so move to withdraw.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded to withdraw this application.
And since he was functioning without the information he needed, would it be possible to at least do a portion of his funds back?
I would leave that up to the pleasure of this board. If you guys want to make that as part of the motion, we'll do it.
Well, I think since he was unaware of what was actually being asked, I think it's only fair to return what he has paid into.
So are you making a substitute motion?
I'm making an addition to my motion. So the motion is to withdraw and return his application fees.
Second applied?
Second.
Motion's been made, amended, and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It carries. Thank you. We need to have a motion. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second.
All
Make
those
a
in
motion
favor,
to have a Merry Christmas too.
all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
In the winter